Good afternoon, New York, and the rest of our listeners around the globe. My name is June Stoyer, and I'm the host of the Organic View radio show. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Zune, and all major podcast providers. So if you can't catch the show live, you can download it or simply use our free podcast player, which is available on our website at www.theorganicview.com. If you'd like to connect with us, please post a question on our wall on Facebook or send me a tweet at June Stoyer on Twitter. If you'd like to be on the show or would like to find out about sponsorship opportunities, please contact us at questions@theorganicview.com. Today's show is sponsored by MyMumble.com, one of the leading voice chat service providers with locations all over the world. MyMumble offers free 5-seat voice chat service for life, as well as higher capacity plans for any group that requires a secure environment for confidential communication. Listeners of The Organic View can receive 15% off on monthly recurring power servers by using the coupon code ORGVIEW. For more promotional offers, please visit our website at www.theorganicview.com. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon, June. From Colorado, we're having a beautiful day, and the bees are flying and bringing in some of the early tree pollen, and spring is just around the corner.
I couldn't agree with you more, and the same is true here in New York. It's absolutely beautiful today. Hopefully this means that this is the end of winter. On today's show, Tom and I are going to talk to Bonnie Raindrop and Bill Castro, who are two beekeepers from Maryland that are involved in efforts to restrict the use of neonicotinoids. So I'd like to welcome to the show Bonnie and Bill. Good afternoon, folks.
Hi, June and Tom and listeners. Thanks so much for having us.
Yes, thank you very much for having us. Absolutely.
Bonnie, I'd like to begin with you. Could you please share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Sure. Well, I've been a beekeeper this is my 9th year, and I'm part of the Central Maryland Beekeepers group and the legislative chair with that group. And I'm also working with a coalition of 60 organizations here in Maryland. It's called the Maryland Smart on Pesticides Coalition. So we're working very hard to try to get some important bee-friendly legislation passed here in our state.
Thank you, Bonnie. And Bill, can you please share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Sure. I am an urban treatment-free beekeeper here in the city of Baltimore. I've been keeping bees. I've been loving bees since about the age of 8. And I've kept bees in several areas across the country and dealt with each of the challenges that have brought with it. And I just couldn't imagine living life without having bees in my front and backyard.
Thank you. Now, I guess my next question is for Bonnie. Bonnie, what is this bill about, and what prompted the efforts to push this type of a bill in the state of Maryland?
Well, the bill is called the Maryland Pollinator Protection Act, and we're pushing this bill in the state of Maryland because we've been losing a lot of bees every year. We, for the most part, are somewhere between 30 and 50% of our bees die each winter. So that's really an unsustainable number for beekeepers. The cost associated with that is really, it's just something that beekeepers just can't keep doing. And so consequently, we've met up with a large coalition of other people who are also concerned about, the survival of honeybees and other pollinators and the food supply. And this coalition looked at where we might be able to do some good in Maryland and have focused on taking neonics off of store shelves so that they're not so readily available for all the home gardeners who really don't know how to use such a powerful toxic chemical as neonicotinoids. The bill will do one other thing. Besides taking the products off store shelves, it would also label plants that are sold to consumers that, have been pre-treated with neonics. We were part of a study that took place this summer, and we found the same thing in Maryland, that over 50% of the labeled bee-friendly plants had already been pre-treated with neonics at levels that would kill bees. So we think that that's a consumer right-to-know issue, and we're trying to get that labeled in the state.
Last week, actually, we talked about the state of Hawaii pushing through similar legislation. So it's interesting. State by state, there's a lot of activity as far as the efforts to restrict the use of neonicotinoids. But before we go any further, Tom, if you could just take a moment to remind our listeners what the sublethal effects are and why these chemicals kill bees.
Boy, that's a tall order because we see all sorts of symptoms as a consequence of the poisoning from neonicotinoids, and they run the gamut from almost instant death. For example, in the situation where they're planting corn and there's fugitive dust, the bee kill can be substantial and ongoing concurrent to the corn planting. In other cases, the way that they're exposed to it are at low levels and take time to express themselves. It's believed that 1/4,000th of a chronically lethal dose, 1/4,000th, over time will produce the same endpoint, which is death. So we can see death directly, indirectly, delayed, immediate, but also there are some very subtle changes that are taking place. We're talking about a superorganism. The colony of bees is a superorganism, and to a large degree, it's regulated and timed and balanced by way of chemical signals. And it's beginning to appear that the neonicotinoids are interfering with the perception of those chemical signals, the bees' response to those. It's disrupt the organization of the colonies. It expresses itself in many, many ways, and the tiniest of doses can have a profound effect. Dutch toxicologist Hank Jennekes believes there is no safe dose, that the effect on the synapses is cumulative and irreversible. So it's like the analogy of cigarettes. One cigarette didn't kill someone, but over time they certainly did. And we're seeing the same sort of thing with the neonicotinoids.
Now, Tom, I just have another question that I'd like you to respond to. In regards to the use of imidacloprid in the home environment as well as broadly used pesticide, what are the effects of the use of this chemical?
Well, they're long-lasting. Most of these are water-soluble, so they migrate readily with the groundwater, and they have half-lives of years. One of the things that the chemical interests are trying to push is that these neonicotinoids can be used as part of an integrated pest management program, and that's just the most wild concept imaginable. A product or a chemical that has a half-life of years has no place in integrated pest management, and it's an illusion to think that it does.
And there's also been a lot of talk about the fact that neonicotinoids are not necessarily the culprit, but it's primarily Varroa mites. So I'd like to hear from each of you what your take is on this.
Well, there's no question that Varroa is a pest that is really, causing a great deal of problem with our hives. But there's a synergistic effect of pesticides, especially with neonics, that they're finding that it actually makes Varroa mites stronger because it lengthens the period of time that the brood develops by a couple of days. So Varroa is certainly an issue, but again, the neonics are exacerbating the problems that we're having by weakening the immune system of the bees and making them much more susceptible to diseases and making Varroa more virulent in the hives because of that. And so, it's something that we feel just exacerbating and causing a lot of, they're talking about like a winter CCD now as being related to neonics and the exposure that the bees are having at sublethal levels.
I would largely agree with what Bonnie has to say. The thing that I'm always, of course, concerned about is how do we know what is actually causing all this stuff when there's a whole chemical soup out there? We've got the mites, we've got, there's a whole host of problems. Unless we start to eliminate some of these issues, whether it's the neonics or, that's in my opinion, that's the best place to start, since that's the biggest, place of contention. If we don't eliminate that from the ecosystem, so that we can either confirm or just say that there wasn't a problem with them, without that, I don't see how that they can anybody could claim whether it's it's not a problem. Without a moratorium like say what the EU is doing, how could they even know whether or not these chemicals are a problem without taking them out of the environment altogether? They're already out there. We know they're out there, and they persist in the environment for a long period of time. We need to take them out of the environment for a specific period of time so that we could truly know what exactly is going on. But without that, there's no way you could really, claim that they aren't a problem, in my opinion.
There's ample science to show that they are a problem, and it's the only questions surrounding the science are those questions that are raised by the chemical industry. The science is clear. It's like looking at a terminal cancer patient and then attributing their death to a head cold. Of course, there are other things at work here, but the major player in this situation is this family of pesticides and some of the others, but the neonicotinoids are a major player, and to claim that we don't know on the part of the chemical industry is just, we do know. The evidence is clear and abundant.
Yeah, Tom, you're so right about that. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is sort of a disinformation campaign that tries to discredit the good science that is out there about neonics. I know in 2014 there was an international meta-analysis of about 1,100 peer-reviewed studies that were talking about the impact of neonics. And this was conducted by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. And the task force found that neonics are absolutely at levels in the environment that are known to cause lethal and sublethal effects to a wide range of organisms. And that includes pollinators, but also aquatic microorganisms, invertebrates, and vertebrates. And so, the body of research is really there, but there seems to be, much like the tobacco industry did, trying to discourage people from really believing the science that's there.
Yeah, they're part of their method is to sow doubt. It's interesting to see how they reacted to the worldwide assessment. As you said, Bonnie, over 800 peer-reviewed studies. Well, the chemical industry didn't confront the science because they really couldn't confront that volume of science. So what they did is they conjured up this scenario where these scientists were conspiring to defeat these chemicals. And they're accusing the scientific community of the very things that they're guilty of. These scientists, 2 or 3 years ago, said, we see a problem emerging and we need to understand it. And that's exactly what they did. Well, the chemical industry has tried to paint that as a conspiracy. I see it as a very responsible effort, not a conspiracy. We're dealing with use any technique necessary to advance their interests.
Bonnie, you have put together, your organization has been passing out a lot of great information as far as neonicotinoid-free consumer pesticide products. Can you talk a little bit about that handout? I think it's a very good idea, especially for people that firmly believe that the only solution is to use a product that contains a neonicotinoid.
Yes, it was something that we looked at when we were considering the bill. We wanted to make sure that there were safe alternatives out there. And so we did quite a bit of research. In fact, I worked on this piece myself. And we went to the Pesticide Research Institute, who has a product evaluator database. And we also went to Beyond Pesticides, the Xerces Society, and a couple of other groups. And we compiled a list. And what we found was that there are over 290 neonic-free products for common pests that are safer for honeybees. And one of the things that we put together was a chart so that homeowners would be able to go to this piece of this documentation and look up whatever it was that they were trying to address in their home environment, if that was, termites or flies or, mealybugs or, any number of other things. And we tell in a chart how many neonic-free, low-hazard products are available, and then we give people 5 that they can choose from. But the really great thing about this data is that the Pesticides Research Institute makes it available as an app for the iPhone. So, you can, I think it's like $1.99, and you can have it right on your phone, and you could go to a store and type in either, what products are available by pest, or you can look up certain ingredients, and you can get a hazard rating for those things.
I have a beekeeping question. I am interested in how the Maryland beekeepers recover from those losses. Do you rely on the packaged bee industry to recover?
Well, that's a good question, Tom. Because we're not the only state that is having these kinds of losses, what we've found is that the packages have been hard to get in the last several years, and hard to get them at the time of year we need them to take advantage of the nectar flow. So we've had bee classes that we run every year with the Central Maryland Beekeepers, and we've had some years where the graduating new beekeepers could not get bees in time to start up their colonies. So what we've done is CMBA has started a nucleus program, and we as a group went in and purchased a large amount. I think we got 150 nukes from a beekeeper that was in the Pennsylvania area. This gentleman had moved his hives back from Florida, so he had them in the area early. We did a large purchase, and then we set up a nuke yard with 20 nukes, and we use that as a hands-on training ground for the new beekeepers, and then we also make splits off of that through the year. So that's been a more successful approach, and we took it last year, and we're going to do the same thing this year.
Yeah, I believe a lot of people who ordered packages last year actually received them very late in the season, even including like to June. Our nectar flow basically ends sometime in, say, the mid-June time frame. And so if you're picking up packaged bees in June, man, I mean, there's just almost no hope of those bees being able to establish themselves. So, here in the north part of the East Coast, if we're not getting our packages, within the first or second week of April, there's really not a whole lot you can do for your bees at that point, because they rely heavily on that natural nectar flow. So
we think that's the next weak link in the chain, because we've become more and more dependent on the packaged bee industry over time, and they've done their best to satisfy the needs of beekeepers throughout the country, but they're subjected to the same kinds of losses that everybody else is, and we're, I think, approaching the point where they won't be able to supply sufficient numbers of packages at any price, at any time, and that's what's keeping this population pumped up. I've used the comparison of the Monarch Butterfly, and I think most people are aware that there's been a move to make the Monarch Butterfly a threatened species because they have seen a 90% decline in their population in the last 20 years. And this is exactly what you would see with the honeybee if you remove the beekeepers from the equation. And if beekeepers can't get packages in the spring, and they're losing their bees at a rate of 50 or 60% every winter, it's not long before we have no bees. We'll lose the beekeepers and then the bees.
Thank you.
And then the food supply.
And then food supply, exactly. Bonnie, I have a question for you. Does this bill include provisions to prevent the use of pesticides on school grounds and any areas where children play?
It does not. It's very, very specific. It only limits the availability of consumers to buy it. It makes it a restricted chemical. So any organization, and that might be a commercial applicator, a vet, or an agriculture operation, if they already have the certification to buy a restricted use pesticide, they'll be able to buy it and use it. But the home consumer use is what this bill targets.
This has had considerable support on the part of the Maryland population, hasn't it?
It really has. We did a survey, and 81% of Maryland voters supported the labeling of the plants treated with neonics, and 78% supported restricting the consumer use of neonics. So that's pretty significant.
Yes, it is.
How many beekeepers are represented by your organization?
Well, you know, it's a moving target, honestly. I think we're about 300 beekeepers in Central Maryland Beekeepers Association. But, you know, one of the things that we're finding is that, you know, we lose a lot of new beekeepers in the first 3 years because, you know, their bees are dying and, you know, they may have started out really enthused, but, you know, it's not sustainable. And so you have sort of an attrition. Very high interest in the area of the public about coming in and learning to be beekeepers, but I think it's like we only retain something like 3 out of 10 after the third year because it's, you know, so hard with this die-off problem.
It becomes expensive every year when you have to replace your colonies at, you know, $100, $150 a shot. Over 3 years, that's $500 plus everything else that you have invested, your boxes, your frames, your foundation, your, you know, everything that's associated with the bees, and plus then, you know, every time you have to go out there and replace your bees, you know, the emotional cost, again, to the sideliner is just, you know, some people just can't take it. Every year they got to go out and sweep out all their dead bees and start all over again. That's tough.
It's very difficult because a beekeeper develops an intimate attachment to this community of insects, and it's like being witness at a death. It would be like raising puppies every spring only to see them die. It's very discouraging, and that's why
really
we're seeing such high attrition.
Bill, you used to have bees in the country, and now from what I understand, you're in the city. Do you have any bees at all in the countryside, or are you just strictly in the city only?
I have one hive left out in the county area. When I originally moved here to Maryland, I decided that I was going to target 2 organic farms that were out in Baltimore County, and so that's where I started my apiary. I probably had easily about 20 colonies of bees out there, and I had nothing but trouble trying to get them established, trying to basically just get them to live from year to year. When I moved here into Baltimore City, I had a far easier time raising my bees here in the city. Everything just kept buying packages and trying to restart my apiary out in the county. Eventually, I just gave up, and whatever was essentially still living out in the county, which was maybe even just a handful from the 20 or more that I started out in the county, I brought them all back into the city. My progress here in the city has been so good that I just pulled everything out of the county and brought everything into the city. And now I am urban based now. Everything is just about, except for the one hive that I have out in the county there, which I probably am going to go strap up and bring back in with me. I don't have the same issues that I did out in the county at all here in the city. Every year things have doubled, so I foresee my company, my apiary at this point, I will double the numbers here in the city again and redistribute only in the city where the forage seems better and there's far less chemical application here in the city.
Bonnie, what are the next steps for the Pollinator Protection Act? What course is it going to follow?
Right now, we're gearing up for a vote in the Senate committee. We testified there about a week and a half ago. They still haven't voted on the bill yet, but that may happen as early as today or tomorrow. But tomorrow, Bill is going to be testifying for us in front of the House Hearing Committee, and we have 15 beekeepers that are going down to visit the committee members' offices. We're going to be taking them a little bit of honey and talking to them about, what it's like for us as beekeepers and why it's so important for them to pass this bill. And we'll probably be sitting in the hearing until maybe about this time tomorrow evening, and hopefully we will have prevailed and convinced the House committee members that this is really a bill that they should pass. And then the next step after that will be they'll take it into a full vote. Our General Assembly session ends about April 15th, so we've got about 1 month left to get this thing done this year.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully things will work out and we could get some changes made. We're starting to see a lot of activity in different states across America, which is a very good sign. Don't you think, Tom?
Yes, I think definitely it is. I think the interest on the part of the public has picked up considerably. They're beginning to recognize what some of the hazards are and what's been done, and that they're not being told the truth.
Bill and Bonnie, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today and to share a little bit about all of the hard work, energy, and effort that you folks are putting into this bill. And we sincerely wish you the best of luck and hope to have you come back really soon.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks, June. You have a very valuable show there, and I value you very greatly. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for continuing to spread the word.
You're both very welcome. And, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Listen to the Neonicotinoid View each Thursday as Tom and I continue to explore the impact of neonicotinoids on the environment and on pollinators. Have a great afternoon, everyone.